The UK housing market is collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. On one hand, buyers are locked out of homes they've already paid for, waiting months, sometimes over a year, just to be allowed inside. On the other, entire streets sit abandoned, windows boarded, weeds growing through cracked concrete, while thousands of families wait on social housing lists and thousands more live in temporary accommodation. It feels like a cruel joke. We have houses, but people can't live in them. For decades, politicians promised solutions. They told us home ownership was the dream, the reward for hard work. They swore that building more homes would fix the problem. But what's unfolded instead is a nightmare of bureaucracy, financial traps, and political theatre. Regulators block finished properties, councils profit from empties, and developers drown in paperwork while families drown in debt. So the question is simple. How did Britain, once a nation where owning a home defined success and stability, end up in this chaos? And the harder question, what comes next? It all begins with the very institution designed to keep us safe, the Building Safety Regulator. After the Grenfell tragedy, which claimed 72 lives and scarred the nation, no one doubted the need for stricter oversight. The government created a regulator to ensure that buildings met higher standards, that corners weren't cut, that safety was finally placed above profit. On paper, it was a noble mission. In practice, it has become a chokehold on the entire housing system. As of this year, 1,210 brand new homes, fully built, ready for residents, are sitting empty. Why? Because the regulator hasn't signed them off. Families who poured savings into deposits are trapped in limbo, paying rent elsewhere, watching their money vanish while their homes sit gathering dust. Developers, meanwhile, are losing fortunes. Some report bleeding £100,000 a week on projects stalled for months on end. And the reasons for delay? Almost laughable if they weren't so devastating. Sky News revealed one case where an entire block of flats in Acton was left vacant for over 14 months because the signs inside were 2 millimeters too small. Every single sign had to be remade and replaced before approval could be granted. Bureaucracy taken to the extreme. Developers argue that the system is not fit for purpose. They claim the regulator moves at a snail's pace, provides little guidance, and sometimes rejects paperwork over technicalities it never bothered to explain. The regulator blames developers in return, saying they failed to submit the right documents. Meanwhile, ordinary people, the ones waiting to move in, are caught in the middle. The irony is cruel. A regulator designed to prevent another Grenfell is now holding up safer buildings, forcing companies to abandon projects and driving up costs across the sector. And those costs inevitably land on buyers and renters. The very system built to protect people may now be pricing them out. But this is only the first twist in a much bigger disaster. If the regulator delays feel absurd, the next problem borders on surreal. Across England, nearly 720,000 homes are empty. Yes, while millions struggle to rent or buy, 750,000 properties are sitting idle. Of those, about 265,000 are long-term empty, meaning no one has lived in them for over 6 months. And here's where the contradiction gets painful. Right now, over 354,000 people are homeless in England, and 1.3 million households are waiting for social housing. Families are packed into temporary B&Bs, young professionals are stuck in flat shares into their 30s, and yet vast swathes of housing stand unused. Why? Some of these homes are derelict, falling apart, with owners who can't or won't invest in fixing them. Others are caught in probate, locked in legal limbo after someone dies. Some are owned by investors who are simply sitting on them, waiting for values to rise. And some councils quietly prefer them empty because long-term vacancies are taxed at a premium, up to 300% of the usual rate. In other words, the worse the problem gets, the more councils make from it. There are schemes to tackle this. In Lewisham, for example, the council offers up to £20,000 to refurbish derelict homes. Across Kent, the No Use Empty scheme provides interest-free loans for owners willing to rent or sell. But uptake is dismal. In Lewisham, despite more than 2,200 empty homes, only 22 grants were awarded in 5 years. And even when councils do act, the numbers barely scratch the surface. The result? A surreal contradiction where empty homes drag down neighbourhoods, attracting crime and vandalism, while thousands of families remain desperate for shelter. It's not just inefficient, it's immoral. But even if every empty property was filled tomorrow, the bigger problem would remain. Homes are simply unaffordable for the majority of people. Back in the 1980s, you could buy a Victorian house in South London for £24,000. One woman did exactly that, using a council grant to fix the ceiling. Today, that very same home is worth £1 million. In one lifetime, a property went from affordable to impossible. And that's the heart of the affordability trap. For most young workers, home ownership isn't even a dream anymore. It's a fantasy. The average house now costs more than 9 times the average salary, when affordability is usually defined as 5 times. Deposits stretch into tens of thousands, with banks rejecting applicants under strict affordability rules. Parents are often the only route onto the ladder. Without their help, many are permanently locked out. Renting isn't a solution either. Landlords charge record-high rents for increasingly poor-quality homes. Tenants find themselves paying half or more of their monthly income just to live in places plagued by damp, mould, and disrepair. Saving for a deposit becomes impossible when rent drains every spare pound. Politicians and media often point the finger at immigration, claiming demand from newcomers has pushed locals out. But the deeper truth is decades of poor policy. Right-to-buy schemes sold off millions of council homes without replacing them. Investment in social housing stalled, and financial systems have been tilted towards investors, second home buyers, and overseas capital, all while wages stagnated. The outcome is a generation trapped between unaffordable mortgages and unlivable rents. And while ordinary people are told to work harder or move somewhere cheaper, politicians keep dangling promises that never seem to materialise. Every election cycle, housing becomes the headline promise. We'll fix the market, they say. We'll build more homes. The latest slogan from Labour is Build Baby Build, a pledge to create 1.5 million new homes this Parliament. But look closely, and the math doesn't add up. Developers are already warning they can't deliver, not with today's regulatory delays, skyrocketing material costs, and endless planning backlogs. One managing director admitted his projects were running 6 to 12 months behind, with millions locked in limbo. Others have walked away altogether, saying projects are no longer financially viable. And yet, there's no shortage of money. Investors are lining up with capital, ready to finance construction through bonds, mortgages, and hybrid funds. The problem isn't funding, it's bureaucracy. Every level of the system, from local planning committees to national regulators, slows things to a crawl. Even when land is available, red tape buries projects. So what happens instead? Politicians keep announcing targets. Ministers cut ribbons on half-finished projects. Housing becomes a photo op, not a reality. Meanwhile, the gap between promises and outcomes widens. And for those trying to rent or buy, the effect is devastating. Trust in both the market and the government erodes. But the real story of housing chaos isn't just about paperwork and promises. It's about the human consequences playing out in every community across the country. Housing chaos isn't abstract. It's changing daily life. In Bristol, one long empty property became a magnet for drug use and crime. Neighbours reported feeling unsafe walking home at night, and local house values slumped. Multiply that by hundreds of thousands of properties across the country, and you get entire communities blighted by neglect. The generational divide is just as stark. Parents who bought in the 80s and 90s now sit on homes worth hundreds of thousands, or millions, while their children remain lifelong renters. Wealth isn't just inherited in cash, it's embedded in bricks and mortar. One generation lives off capital gains, another drowns in rent. The resentment is palpable. Homelessness, too, is rising. Families squeezed into B&Bs, children growing up without stability, workers commuting long distances because they can't afford to live near their jobs. Cities like London, which should be engines of opportunity, are instead becoming zones of exclusion. And when housing becomes unattainable, everything else, family, careers, stability, starts to collapse with it. This isn't just about money. It's about dignity, safety, and the social fabric of the country. A broken housing system creates broken communities, and unless something changes, the fractures will only deepen. The UK housing market isn't just failing. It's failing on every level, in every direction. Regulators designed to protect buyers are stalling projects. Councils are letting homes rot while profiting from vacancy taxes. Developers are tied up in red tape. Politicians shout slogans but deliver little. And ordinary people, whether they're renters, buyers, or homeless, are left paying the price. The bigger picture is bleak. Strong nations depend on strong cities, and strong cities depend on affordable, livable homes. Without them, inequality grows, resentment festers, and opportunity shrinks. Housing is not just an economic issue, it's the foundation of a stable society. And right now, that foundation is crumbling. The question is no longer if the housing market will change. It must. The real question is how much chaos it will unleash before it does. Will we see bold reforms, councils forced to act, regulators streamlined, and genuine affordable housing built at scale? Or will Britain continue to stumble down this path of rising prices, rising anger, and rising inequality? One thing is certain: the longer we delay fixing the problem, the harder the crash will be. And when it comes, it won't just be the housing market that suffers. It will be the entire country.